Yes.
Indeed. So whilst we've got the European rules-based international order ramping up war in Europe, we've got a distracting dialogue in America now with Trump?
It's very distracting, but it's actually much more once you dig beneath the surface on this. This is a fascinating story. Donald Trump has really outdone himself, Brian. And you remember what he did to Zelensky at the end of February, where he invited him to the White House and really took him out publicly. And, to great applause from a lot of people, obviously. Zelensky, not a particularly popular character, but South Africa has had very friendly relations with the United States for a very long time, and they've always had good Republicans and Democrats, Brian. So what's changed in the last 12 months?
Well, I would say propaganda, Patrick, but you take us through this segment.
Well, so Cyril Ramaphosa was invited for a state visit to the Oval Office. And he was probably expecting there was going to be some aggression from Trump. So he brought his white agricultural minister and 2 top PGA golfers, because Trump loves golf. Very canny by Cyril Ramaphosa, South African president. But that wasn't enough. Donald Trump basically unleashed what can only be described, Brian, by not just myself, but many others as an absolute tsunami of propaganda to basically demean, defame, and to discredit the president and his government.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you why in a moment. Here's Donald Trump and a small clip from their exchange yesterday.
That I could show you a couple of things, and it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would. And turn the lights down. Turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one.
A few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death.
So it's pretty incredible. He had a stack of internet articles. We can't see what they were. We found one of them by doing a zoom in on the screenshot, and it was from the American Thinker, and it was actually from a Congolese murder case of women in the Congo,
right?
Black African women. And he showed a clip, Brian, of this thing that a lot of people have seen on social media of white crosses along the road in South Africa. And Trump said this was a mass grave and there was a massacre. And those were graves of people that have been slaughtered by blacks, white farmers that have been slaughtered. And the implication is there's a white genocide in South Africa. So Trump basically laid all this on. And basically, it really embarrassing for the South African president, and probably is going to make quite a few other world leaders think twice about accepting invitations to the Oval Office. So, but the white crosses is interesting, Brian. We did some research on this, and it turns out it's not a mass grave. Those are crosses that have been put as a memorial to 2 white farmers, a couple that was killed. The memorial was set up by all the residents in 2020. Black and white residents came together to do a vigil, a giant display of unity. And Trump, Elon Musk, and the others have cynically twisted this into a propaganda exercise of division, stoking absolute race hate on an international level. Yeah. Here's a documentary showing the story of the crosses that Trump left out of his presentation with Ramaphosa. Here it is.
So what happened to him, although he's white, we don't look at the color, we look at what we are doing. We are doing the same thing. We are all farmers. Next time it's going to be me.
We're here this morning at Newcastle where last week there was a couple murdered just outside towards Normandien way. So all the farmers and everyone interested in the cause has gathered together now, and we are going to be driving from Newcastle to Normandien to the farm where the couple was murdered, and fighting for the cause, for fighting for the farmers, fighting for equality, fighting against corruption.
A local farmer and friend of the Raffertys, Rob Houghton, put up hundreds of crosses along the road leading to their farm almost overnight. 3,000 people climbed into 1,000 or so vehicles, tractors, buckies, sprayers, trucks, combis, and cars. It took hours for the somber procession to pass the boulevard of crosses.
So, Brian, Trump showed these images without any context to the South African president, put him on the spot in front of a world audience, and said that was a genocide mass grave.
Can I make another? Just come in to make another point there. Patrick, is when Trump was holding up the pages, another death, another death, another death. He could have done this during COVID. That's one thing I could say. But the second thing is he wasn't doing that during the attacks in Gaza.
No,
we weren't seeing, here's another 1,000, here's another 10,000. So the point that I think it's important for our audience to really think about is, why is there this sudden switch between massive death and carnage in Ukraine and Gaza to South Africa? So this is not belittling the people who've been killed in South Africa. We know there's some terrible things going on there, but why the massive switch in attention? This is the key issue.
And I've got the explanation for that in a moment. But the other thing that Trump didn't mention, Brian, is more farmers in America have committed suicide from the banks doing predatory, land seizures and taking their properties away and making basically the farming industry impossible for small to medium-sized family-owned farms in America. The suicide rate is off the charts, and it dwarfs any murders of white farmers and black farmers in the whole of South Africa, and that's in the United States of America. Yeah. Where's Donald Trump for the American people?
To me, this is switching. This is a massive attempt to switch worldviews from one area of the world to somewhere completely different. He doesn't want to point it back on America, because that would destabilize his own position if he was to talk about these problems in America. But
it's gaslighting on a geopolitical level. So not only was this a memorial that wasn't a mass grave, we did a little checking, Brian. We used Google Maps. We looked at the coordinates of where this was outside of Newcastle in South Africa, and we'll bring the image up on screen here. And obviously anybody can do this at home. Even Donald Trump's research team has access to Google Maps, I'm sure. So the memorial site, here's a shot, Brian. The crosses have been removed. This is a 2-year-old picture. So the crosses have been gone for 2 years from that memorial, but Donald Trump is showing it to the world as if it's a mass grave now.
Yes.
So it's not only is it not a mass grave, the crosses aren't even there anymore. So can he afford, I'm happy to provide research services for the White House. UK.com will do it for you when we'll do it for free because we have access to Google. So we feel very well equipped in that respect. But this is what it's all about. We'll go to the next image here, Brian. And this is the controversial item here. South Africa rejects Trump's accusations on land seizures. So this is all about, from Trump's gaslighting anyway, the Land Appropriations Act, controversial, that was recently passed. What this was doing, and here's the irony again. The old act was a 1975 apartheid-era act, Brian, which had all kinds of very harsh apartheid government land expropriation clauses. What this did is put in due process. For the government has to go through a rigorous due process of applications and compensation for eminent domain. We have eminent domain laws in America. The government needs it for a highway or to do anything. Britain has it. The military uses it in all countries. South Africa now has updated that, and that has been twisted by Elon Musk, Marco Rubio, and Donald Trump to make it like this is a law to confiscate white land and pay no compensation. It's a total lie. We could go into the details of that legislation, which I've done on this program with Mike Robinson a couple of months ago. But that's the fact of it all. So again, more gaslighting. But we provided a full analysis on this up at 21stcenturywire.com. Just see the top story today, Trump's white genocide in South Africa, from fake news to orchestrated propaganda. So really good comparative analysis, shows all the crime data, the political system, how where all these fringe parties like Julius Malema, the guy who you heard his voice talking, who's actually had a number of court cases against him by the government of South Africa and so forth. But you have to go no further than AfriForum. The Afrikaans, one of their political representatives was asked point blank in a big podcast in South Africa, is there a white genocide? Here's what he said.
Everyone who's lost someone to murder, and especially gruesome murder, and in this context on a farm, whether they're an owner or a worker, I'd like to share my sympathies and condolences to anyone that you may know personally, and that maybe some of your colleagues may know personally. In the discussion of some of these matters, and it's very important that we discuss them, we need to always raise the importance of the human element. And then also, on behalf of AfriForum, are you saying white genocide does not exist in South Africa, whether farm murders or otherwise?
There's not a white genocide going on in South Africa, and AfriForum doesn't claim that there is one. So it's not just me talking, I'm talking as a representative of AfriForum.
Okay.
That is not the reality in South Africa, and we've never said it is.
A lot of questions to be asked, Patrick, on this, and we want to look the audience in the eye and say we know that we've got viewers and listeners in South Africa. We know there's huge problems in that country, but at the moment there's something very sinister going on over the top of what's happening on a national level. So,
where did this all come from, Brian? How did this come to the fore? How did this reach the White House level? It started with Elon Musk. And it's also then was picked up by Marco Rubio. Both Marco Rubio and Elon Musk are very much in the capture zone of the Israeli lobby. They tweet pretty much the same things all the time, along with other top Israeli accounts, along with Tommy Robinson. There's pretty much a carbon copy of all how they tweet at the same time on all of these issues. So there's clearly campaigns going on. But why would you attack South Africa? Why? What did South Africa do in the last 2 years?
My guess is to take attention away from something.
To discredit South Africa.
Okay.
And we'll bring this up on screen here. Let's not forget, South Africa, Israel not complying with the World Court order in a genocide case filed by South Africa. So there is basically a campaign, an effort to discredit the government of South Africa to create the idea of a genocide in South Africa while diminishing an actual genocide happening in Gaza. So these two things are absolutely politically linked, and we'll bring this up on stage, just further proof. Israel asking the U.S. Congress to putting pressure on Congress to get South Africa to drop the ICJ genocide case, and also to curtail aid to South Africa. So Israel in the lobby are very much involved in attacking the country of South Africa. That's where this is coming from. Anybody can see it with a modicum of basic research. And just to add a little bit of substance to this, one of the main spokespersons here on the white genocide campaign in America is a man named Ernst Roetz, and he is heavily promoted by the Daily Wire here. Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, they fly him over to the United States. A lot of money is being spent to bring these people campaigning and promoting the idea of a white genocide in South Africa across certain podcasts, mainly the Daily Wire and other very pro-Israel and pro-Zionist lobby media outlets. Because, again, this is part of a political PR exercise, a propaganda campaign. It's pretty clear. And they come over to raise funds for NGOs in America. So America's backing, listen to this, Brian, America's backing NGOs in foreign countries to help destabilize a government. Isn't that what Trump and everyone have accused the left of doing with USAID? And then they're weaponizing crime, basic crime in a country and putting a race theme on it, which is exactly what the left did with George Floyd. That's what Ben Shapiro and these people made their career off of calling out the quote radical left, the woke left, for doing exactly this, instrumentalizing what's a crime and then turning into a race war, basically. We called it race hustling back in the old days.
And the irony is they do all this whilst calling themselves the rules-based international order, as if they sit on a platform of high moral standards.
So everything George Soros does, Brian, the right is now doing as well, but for different issues, but the mechanisms are exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
Thank you. Well, what an excellent point to bring in Mark Anderson. Mark, welcome to. Sorry, you got one more to cover, or
What? No, I was going to introduce this, but we'll bring in Mark and then I'll go to that. But
well, let's bring you on the screen, Mark, and just fascinating how all of this has been coming together, and the information that we've got for today's UK column news, because you've been having a look at what the American opinion of Israel is, but. Don't know what you had to add to that, Patrick.
Before we get to that, and Mark does have some very compelling data to share with us, but Mike, have you noticed, Brian, in the last 2 weeks, the narrative has shifted. Mainstream media outlets, European leaders are basically saying it's a genocide in Gaza after being completely silent about it for the last 19, 20 months. Have you noticed this? It's a sea change. It's a major pivot. And here's Jonathan Cook, an amazing journalist here, and he's saying, ignore Starmer's theatrics. Gaza's trail of blood leads straight to his door. Why has this narrative come? Let's take a look at what Jonathan Cook says. He said the establishment media's narrative had to shift first so that the sudden outpouring of moral and political concern at Gaza's suffering from the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, after more than a year and a half of indifference, did not appear so abrupt or too strange. And he goes on. And he says they are acting as if some corner has been turned in Israel's genocide. But genocides don't have corners; they just progress relentlessly until stopped. And he finally concludes: the media and politicians are carefully managing any cognitive dissonance for their public. So they're basically, what Jonathan Cook is saying, Brian, is they are setting up a reconfiguration of the narrative, a reframing exercise is happening right now. Right. What is it going to lead to? Is this an attack on Iran? Is this to somehow marginalize Bibi Netanyahu and move him off the stage to be replaced by another Israeli leader, thus diminishing the responsibility of the state of Israel and putting it all on Netanyahu? That we'll wait and see what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, but it is happening. There is a concerted campaign, an effort, a coordinated rapid response effort happening.